Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? I'm not a waiter but a cashier at a fast food restaurant. But I had seen this couple being all lovey with each other, and then we, the staff, could see it on the woman's face that things were going south. Before we know it, she screams, "Hey!" Had this one guy do all this super extra stuff to his very nice booth with rose petals, candles, and champagne. His date never showed up. Sat there in silence. It was brutal. He waited an hour continuously looking at his phone searching for anything to come up. After all that hour, he paid his tab and walked out crying. I never saw him again. A girl that I worked with went to lunch on Valentine's Day at an expensive restaurant her boyfriend had gotten a reservation for. She got dressed up nice, was going on about how sure she was that he was going to propose.
He broke up with her.
I'm not a waitress, but I was around when it happened. So back when I was 13, my mom used to be a waitress at a sushi bar. I used to go with my mom's friend who was 17, so she would drive me there. One day on Valentine's Day my school had an extended lunch break and I was able to go to the sushi bar. I sat outside as usual with my mom's friend, and this couple was sitting at the table right by ours. My mom was getting my order, then the dude asked the woman to marry her. The woman was so rude. She was like, "Yo, it's silver," and also like, "That's like $300 you broke," and she ran out while the man sat there in tears. I feel really bad for him. Happened to my poor co-worker. A guy and his date came in for Valentine's Day. They had a great time, ate a lot of food, drank a lot of wine, and got along really well with my coworker who was their server. About 2 months later they come back in and request my coworker again, who happily says yes to serving them. He goes up and greets them, the guy introduces his wife to him, and my coworker mentions something about how much he enjoyed serving them on Valentine's Day. They go quiet. Wife gets up and leaves, guy just lowers his head. Turns out he had brought his mistress in on Valentine's Day, but my coworker didn't realize he was with a different woman this time around, so didn't think anything of it. We never saw the guy again. I set my hair on fire and spilled a full Stella on a lady. I work in a causal fine dining steakhouse. Luckily for me, the lady I spilled the Stella on was super understanding, and her husband said from across the table, "Well, now she has to take her pants off." So that could have gone worse for me. 2 failed marriage proposals on the same Valentine's Day. The first one simply said, "No, I can't do this," and walked out. The second one stared like a deer frozen in the headlights for an excruciating 30 seconds before muttering, "Let's talk about this later." They stayed for the rest of their 6-course V-Day special dinner, eating and making painful small talk. Not really much of a disaster, but last year my work called me up, "Hey buddy, we know you're single, can you come in as an extra shift tonight?" Not a waiter, but a story worth sharing nonetheless. A friend of mine went on a date with this girl once or twice, and then invited her to a nice Valentine date as well. He had everything set up perfectly. He called her 4 times, texted her several times, and waited for too long. Eventually, after finishing half of the wine bottle by himself, smoking a pack of cigarettes and looking like crap from stress, disappointment, being played, sweating and waiting, he went home. The girl said that she had an emergency and she did not receive any of the texts or calls. However, in a photo posted in Instagram during Valentine's Day, she was shown to have gone out to a concert or something like that, probably with another guy, so she was clearly lying about it. Brutal. Worked at this Japanese restaurant and had one guy comes and orders a bunch of sushi to go, says he's going to surprise his girlfriend. He comes back like 30 minutes later and asks us if he could return some of the sushi. Apparently his girlfriend has a seafood allergy and couldn't eat anything he ordered, and she was mad he spent so much money, so she made him come and try to get some of it back. Obviously we couldn't really give him a refund on the food, but we made him a chicken hibachi on the house so he could have something to take back to her because we felt bad for the guy.
It was like a movie. I was bartending at an Italian restaurant, not a fancy one, but still, and it's pretty much full of Valentine's dates. A guy walks in and sits at the bar by himself, looking pretty down. He asked for a whiskey, so I poured it, told him it was on the house because he looked like he needed it. He proceeds to tell me his story. He had come to the city to surprise his girlfriend for Valentine's, About a 5 hours bus trip between cities, and he sure surprised her. She was in her dorm room fucking one of his friends from high school. He didn't know what to do, so he just walked into the first place that sold alcohol. I spilled as much whiskey as he wanted and watched the Raptors with him. Never saw him again. It's cliché, but it happened. Was a server at a popular seafood chain that isn't very fancy, but when you live in a town like the one I worked in, that sort of place is the nicest place to go for Valentine's Day. Well, the night was incredibly busy when a couple came in. They were upset after waiting 45 minutes for a table, and they were complaining quite a lot. The woman was decked out in a super nice dress and faux fur coat that was actually very realistic. Well, she was sat and served her frozen drink. She goes to lift the glass to her mouth, and inexplicably, the bottom of the cup simply breaks and the drink is spilled all over her dress and nice coat. Was unfortunate. Not really a disaster, but this guy came in and said he was waiting for his date. He stayed for 5 hours waiting and she never showed. He eventually ordered for himself and asked that I remove the other glass of water from the table. He said it was their first date. It wasn't disastrous for the couple as much as it was the restaurant. I used to work at a small southeastern franchise restaurant. It wasn't anything you could mistake for upscale. We had someone call in and ask if we could fry the ring he was planning to propose within a hush puppy. Extremely weird request, but we said sure. They come in to eat with their families. She gets her order of hush puppies, doesn't choke on the ring and seems excited enough. Stayed at the table for about 2 hours total and chatted. They dined and dashed. I saw a couple have a full-blown argument in the middle of the restaurant. The woman stood up, took her ring off, threw it at him and walked out. The man continued his meal, had dessert and then paid the bill, left a pretty big tip for the inconvenience and left. She does this sometimes. Sorry everybody. I got dumped on Valentine's Day last year. I am a waiter.
Well, that's all again for today, guys. Again, I really hope you enjoyed, and if you like it, don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. I also know that it's just one day left from Valentine, and I think it will be interesting to do a second part about this, not exactly with the same question, but similar to, and with some new and fresh experiences from Reddit. But well, until then, I just have to say thanks, and also I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. For me, it's all for today. Well, peace out and see ya in the next video. Bye.